that I'm joined today by Naiyya Saggi. You are the co-founder of the Glamm group and also the founder of babychakra.
Bombay is literally one of the safest cities. I mean, for me to take a taxi at night, at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever, koi problem nahi hui. I can imagine like safety for working women is such a big issue. It is such a basic issue. So you're a girl, you should stand for vice president or secretary. Let the person who's standing against me stand as, who is a boy, stand for president. Hi, I'm Naiyya Saggi. Catch me on Women at Work with RJ Stutee.
Hi guys, मैं हूँ Stutee. Welcome to the superwomaniya show. This is the Women at Work edition, and I know a lot of times we feel कि यार, can women have it all? Can they do it all? Multitasking में तो हम माहिर हैं. और आज मैं जिनके साथ बैठी हूँ, मुझे लगता है उन्होंने इसमें already PhD कर दी है. She wears many hats, and I'm so excited that I'm joined today by Naiyya Saggi. You are the co-founder of the Glamm group and also the founder of babychakra, and you're doing so much more. Thank you for taking out the time for the Superwomaniya show.
It's my pleasure, Stutee. I think it's a fantastic concept and more power to you for doing this.
Thank you. But honestly, so, we're expecting good news in a couple of months.
Yes, in 3 months.
And I want to launch with this because perception hota hai na, that these are things that slow down a woman's career, what she wants to do. In your case, you started babychakra when you were not pregnant.
That's right.
Right? And then, of course, you have a beautiful child, you're planning your second. How are you managing? Do you think these are little speed breakers for a woman in particular?
You know, I was telling you before, right? Before we started the shoot that in my first pregnancy, when I was running babychakra as a sole founder, I was actually also fundraising. So I was basically traveling all over India and even internationally, depending on where my investors were, potential investors were, doing IC meetings, working with my team as well operationally. And we were actually at a hyper scale level at that point in time. So it was quite intense work-wise as well. So working crazy hours. I think Stutee, I was fortunate. I had a healthy pregnancy, so I don't think it held me back in any way. This time around, I mean, I'm 6 months pregnant. It's actually a lot easier because, I do have a co-founder in Darpan who's, also the founder of Glamm, which is the company I joined in time. And it's been great because we have a fully set up team. So it's been very, this time it's been super easy. But that said, again, it's been a healthy pregnancy so far. So, I'm counting my blessings.
Yeah. But, aapko lagta hai because a lot of women also feel so.
Yeah.
And so they keep pushing these decisions about getting married or starting a family. Do you think it has an impact? Have you seen such instances around, or you think slowly, at least corporate India is a little more sensitized to these things?
So there are two pieces to this, right, Stutee? First of all, I do want to acknowledge my privilege. I do come from a background where, education, work after marriage, working through pregnancies was extremely normalized because I'd seen my mother do it. She's an IS officer. She's been through that journey. Like she literally gave a civil service exam in 1980 actually, when she was pregnant with my sister. Right? In Allahabad, she would take the scooter from my chacha would drop her to her examination center and she'd go with a big bottle of pani and like a big cushion. And people will say, देखो कहाँ से लोग आ जाते हैं civil services देने के लिए. But she did it, right? And she made it. And she, was the first person to have made it at that stage, right? In not just like in our family, but also like in multiple states, right? So those are the examples that I have seen growing up, right? So for me, it's normal, but I can understand that for a lot of people, it is not the normal course of things. In fact, you know this, right? You're seeing, there's this, I call this maternity tax, right? You're seeing women after becoming mothers are falling out of the workforce. We have the largest entrance of women into the workforce, especially in women in STEM, but then they fall out in the middle, right? And that is unfortunate. Today, corporate India is changing. We're talking diversity, we're talking inclusion, we're talking DEI, but there's a long way to go before we really see India like exceed the 26%, 25% women workforce participation in today.
I must admit, I did not know this about your mother, and I think that's so inspiring. So, kahin na kahin, growing up with such women around you, that must have shaped who you are today. You know,
100%.
was it very clear that Naiyya, you're going to grow up and you have to become something. You have to be independent. Was that something you heard
I mean,
growing
independence
up?
बिल्कुल. Financial independence तो 100% कि मैंने किसी पर depend कभी नहीं करना. I think that's what we all our dining table conversations were around that. I think ये जो कुछ करने का मैंने life का कुछ बनाने का वो जो motivation था, I think that again came from my parents a lot. Because it was always this whole thing about if you're leading one life, lead a life of impact. And for me, I found that impact, Stutee, interestingly enough, through entrepreneurship. I think we often underestimate how much entrepreneurship can mean in India, because when you're, being an entrepreneur, you're creating jobs, right? You are serving customers at scale, consumers at scale, you're serving your partners at scale, your vendors at scale, right? And you yourself are building, hopefully something value, right? That will maybe surpass your time on this earth, right? So I feel like in India especially, and that's why I came back to India to build my companies out, right? I think in India especially, entrepreneurship is like the way to bridge a lot of gaps, not just for yourself and for value creation for yourself, but for a lot of the other stakeholders who we don't even realize we're impacting in the process. So for me, I think that has stayed with me.
Naiyya, somewhere, of course, we all must acknowledge our privilege, like you said. We're far luckier with parents who encouraged us, opportunities that we had. But ये जो हम बात करते हैं gender bias, casual sexism, the fact that we realize कि कहीं पे कुछ opportunities are not that easy to come by because of our gender. Do you recall when was this the first time that you realized?
Many times. It's happened many times, and I never thought that this would happen to me. And I'll tell you the first time I experienced this. मैंने share करा हुआ है, but I'll share with people who may not be familiar. I was actually my undergrad was in law school, in National Law School, Bangalore. And I was very keen to stand for college president in my third year. पता नहीं कहाँ से मेरे मन में था कि मैं college की president बनकर ही रहूँगी. And I'd done a lot of work before that. I stood for like my class rep and पता नहीं क्या, सारे extracurriculars, co-curriculars, सब कुछ कर. I stood, and it was the first time I experienced being told, and there were these, we were living in hostels. And हमारे पास वो Nokia 3310 वाला phone होता था, right? तो उस पर मुझे messages आ रहे थे कि, you're a girl, you should stand for vice president or secretary. Let the person who's standing against me who was a boy, stand for president.
And you must have been shocked.
I was shocked. I was shocked. I think at that point in time, I did think a lot, Stutee, ki, like, I knew I would lose a lot of so-called friends in that process, right? But somewhere I also found the friends that who would, who basically said that ignore those chits under the door.
But you did become president.
I did. I was very happy for it. So I was actually the third or second woman president in the history of law school. And what I'm most happy about, Stutee, is after me, every alternate year we've had women presidents. This gives me joy. And so that for me was the first experience of knowing that, of feeling rather, that my gender was something that set me apart, and sometimes not in a very positive way.
And this is, protected environment of your home to going to an
very woke environment, Stutee. Let me tell you, I'm very grateful for my undergrad experience. I think NLS was one of the most woke campuses, is one of the most woke campuses in India today. And it caught me off guard, for sure. But, I think that's, bolte na trial by fire. And then, lohe se up, you become like much stronger when you go through fire. I think that's really what happened to me.
I love this story, and I love the fact that it has a happy ending.
Oh, yeah.
But talk to me about this, your childhood, I gather you have a sister.
That's right.
And do you have a brother?
No, I don't.
So were there instances outside your immediate family, लोग बोलते थे कि दो बेटियां?
वो तो बोलते हैं. I mean, वो तो लोगों का काम है बोलना, Stutee. I mean, that you can't. Someone told me this, right? You can't control what people talk about you, but you can control how you feel.
Yeah.
Right? And then how do you move to make things work in your favor anyway? I mean, that was all okay. I guess my parents faced most of that, and we grew up in Calcutta. So Calcutta is a very different environment.
Yeah, it's in that sense
it's a lot more gender, agnostic.
Yeah,
it's a lot. In fact, maybe women are much stronger in Cal. So I didn't really feel it. But I do think that I did feel this whole thing about having a man as part of my journey when I became an entrepreneur. Because literally my first set of angel pitches, and just keep in mind, I'd come again, I'm calling out my privilege here, right? Come back from Harvard, right? I have done my MBA from the best institution on scholarships. I've been at McKinsey, I've done all of these cool things, I think, in my head, right? And I'm back in India to build, and I'm like, who could be more like accomplished and ambitious than me?
Yeah.
And what I'm told in one of my first pitch meetings is, why don't you have a male co-founder to be taken
You were
seriously?
you were
I was
said in
told
as
this
many
point
words.
blank. And I remember thinking, really, is that what, again, it brought back those flashes of, I think, what happened in college. And it came back to me then basically saying, okay, then clearly, and I was quiet then. I walked out. I found, of course, another set of investors who really believed in what we were doing. But it made me really think that, wow, I mean, if someone like me with the privilege I have is exposed to this kind of commentary, what are people otherwise experiencing?
You've come out of this stronger, and like you
stronger,
said, yes, and done what you wanted to do always. But ये चीजें जैसे कि boys club culture, or just the casual sexism that we have to deal with. Must be very emotional. Irrationally उतना नहीं सोच सकते women. How do you deal with that? Because I'm sure that would happen around you, right?
वो तो होता है, but I think अभी थोड़ा सा कम हो गया है, because or at least again,
the pressure of being politically correct. Do you think that it's important?
I think it's less. I think it's less now. Exactly, so the pressure of being politically correct for the people around me, I think is more. But I also think what's happened is and I say this all the time, right? Especially with people I'm either mentoring or invested in, or my teammates as well. Nothing succeeds like success. So if you keep on just focusing on your goal, and you keep on focus on what does success mean to you, and how are you impacting the people in your journey as well in a very positive way, you end up finding a lot of allies in your journey. A lot of allies, Stutee. And I've also found a lot of sponsors in my journey. People who are talking positively about me without me even knowing they are. Right? So I think as an entrepreneur, वैसे भी, like, there's so many failures and so many downturns in life that you naturally start saying, ठीक है, ये हो गया था, भूल जाओ उसको, अभी focus करो कि what's next, what's next. Similarly, even in this particular progression of my journey, right, where I'm realizing, yes, of course, I am faced with biases and I'm faced with judgment. I'm just focusing on the positives now. It's just become one of those, you put on an armor and you go to fight.
Lovely. So, in our conversations, abhi tak mere jitne bhi guests aaye hain, ya otherwise in life, one thing we've understood is ki bossy or boss banne mein gender is the key factor. Ki aap bossy hain if you're a woman who's, trying to run the show, but you're so single-minded, dedicated worker if you're a man and, you want things done your way. As a woman boss, woman entrepreneur, you have a team, you lead people. Are you careful? I mean, because when we're brought up in an environment where we're told, sit like a girl, talk like a girl, be soft-spoken, smile more, things like that. Have you felt that consciously or unconsciously you're trying to kind of dim your shine a little bit so that you're more palatable?
Maybe I've done that in my earlier years, Stutee, because I do feel that, so my first venture, so I've had like an Entrepreneur 1.0 with babychakra, which was a technology venture at the heart of it, a consumer tech venture, right? So I was talking product, we were doing UI, UX with, like, we had a proper team that we were like doing wireframing with, and, we're looking at like a different set of applications you could plug. It was like a very, very different mindset from now when I'm more of a D2C / consumer entrepreneur, right? With good Glamm. So I think in the first stage, maybe I felt that more. So I would go, for instance, to my pitch meetings trying to, like, maybe just wear a black t-shirt and jeans to fit in, right? Versus like this nice red, like colorful jacket and lots of makeup I have on today. So there were these times because honestly, I did not come from a tech background, right? So there was already that bias कि वो तो IIT से नहीं है, तो क्या app बना रही है, क्या MBA बना रही है, क्या PWA बना रही है, right? So all of this stuff would come up. So maybe then, but I think now, not really. In fact, I feel
you're
that
more comfortable in your
I'm very much more comfortable. I'm older as well. I've kind of gone through my journey. I know my allies.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
So all those who are watching this या जो सुन रहे हैं ये रेडियो पे, वो बोलेंगे भाई Naiyya Saggi is a rock star. Okay, she's done so well for herself. Entrepreneur है, Harvard से पढ़ के आई है, college president बनी. Then this other role, of being a wife, mother, having a family. Have you faced that guilt that a lot of women experience? Ki, probably I'm not giving the amount of time that I need to, because these are questions we generally never ask a man. We'd never ask a man who's an entrepreneur and achiever and married and a father saying, how are you managing it all? But it comes very naturally to ask a woman this question.
Again, I want to call out my privilege. I have an amazing husband, right? An amazing partner in my husband as well. And he knows I'm an ambitious person. He knows he married an ambitious woman. And for him, I think, obviously, again, in the early days, or there are times when life is insane, like it's crazy travel or it's crazy work hours.
Yeah, like you were saying when you were raising funds,
Correct.
I'm sure that period
it was
would
madness,
have been,
right? And like other times also, like product launches,
Yeah.
We're now looking at international in a big way at the Glamm group. It's madness, right? But I think the good thing is that I think we both respect each other's ambition. And I think fundamentally as well, I also realize that, for me to be a great mother, to be a great wife, to be a great friend, whatever family, I need to be happy. If I'm not happy, I'm going to be bitter and I'm not going to be able to give anything of myself, right? So I say this a lot, and I'm sorry I'm using jargon again, Stutee, but मैं बहुत use करती हूँ यार life में, but मैं बोलती हूँ कि reservoirs of resilience होते हैं, right? Which is basically where do you derive your courage, your internal strength, your resilience from, for what life has to bring. And for me, that comes from honestly doing what I set out to do. And sometimes I achieve success, sometimes I don't, but at least I know कि मैंने कर दिखाया अपने आप को. So yeah, I've put in the back burner for now. I just focus on what I know to be the right answer for myself at that point in time and for my family at different points in time.
But that's such a precious thing when you said my husband knew right at the beginning that he's marrying a very ambitious woman.
Yeah.
And ambition, with respect to women, is always looked at from a very negative connotation. Ki badi ruthless, ambitious woman is supposed to be heartless and, will go for the kill and all of that. Do you think you intimidate the opposite sex? And,
Who cares? I mean, what is there to care? I mean, I think, by the way, I want to call out, I think today's men are amazing.
The younger boys, the Gen Z,
amazing.
Yeah. They
really, and not, I don't mean amazing and there's trying to pander to them. I really mean it. Again, from my dad, of course, was a very equal parent and very, very progressive. My nana too. But even
that's a working mother that always makes a difference.
They always, And then my husband, I mean, he's so touchwood, he's so secure, Stutee. So, and then my team members, right? They're so secure. They know their worth, they know their value. And everybody knows today, I think that at least the smart people who are already very successful in their own way or have the drive that comes from within, they already know that someone else shining does not mean it takes away from them.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this in men today, right? In fact, I find, and I've told you, I was sharing with you earlier as well, I find a lot of my mentors, a lot of my sponsors, a lot of my partners being amazing, secure men. So for me, I'm not, and if I've come across those insecure people, that's both men and women, by the way.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with
gender many times. And then, you choose, it's your choice who you want in your life, who you don't want in your life, right?
एक बड़ी interesting चीज कहीं मैंने देखी थी, which said that growing up we've seen all kinds of women working, women doing this, women doing that. We've never seen a relaxed woman.
Good one.
Women who puts her feet up कि भाई आराम कर रहे हैं, वो नहीं देखा. Even our mothers or women at home would find something to do because women are meant to do something, work on something. Do you get time for yourself? How do you prioritize yourself? And again, because a lot of times people would think that's selfish, right? Because you must put your child first or your marriage first or the home first. What?
I could be in a massage, but my mind is working overtime, right? I mean, I don't know, Stutee. I get where you're coming from, and I've seen for instance, my mother or my sister also take out a lot of time for what they value. My mother does. She's retired now, but even when she was working, she was painting. She was traveling. You know what gave her joy? My sister, who's also a corporate lawyer, extremely successful. She travels a fair bit as well. That's her time out. And she does a lot of solo travels as well. But I think it all depends on who you are. I don't want to generalize. I hear where you're coming from. I know women are much busier because we have the overhang of so much happening. I think for me personally though, I feel like I was sharing this with a very dear friend at 12 a.m. the other night. I was like, I want to get from here to that next step. And I'm just so hyper-focused as Stutee, I don't have an answer to give you. That's the stage I'm in right now. Maybe in a couple of years, I find my time to myself and my relaxation.
But you're also investing in yourself by working, because that's again your...
Yeah, and it gives me joy. I think that's the other piece. I think, again, work gives me a lot of joy. And it's not because it's work. I think that's the joy of entrepreneurship, right? You're building something when nothing exists. And when you see that process of creation play out and you see people using your products, I mean, kitna maza aata hai, I mean, was then someone was sharing photos from Jamnagar. Like, actually, it was a celebrity, whatever, photojournalist. And wahan par maine dekha ki Alia's using a babychakra patch on Raha baby, and it was completely like in the wild. And I was like, wow, these are like people we haven't even contacted, but they are using our products in the wild, as we call it, right? It was fabulous, like those moments, or you go to the airport and you see someone is using like one of our My Glamm lipsticks or one of our, mom's scope. It's just like a brilliant feeling.
एक चीज जो a lot of people, and I'm sure since you're here, they want to know is women entrepreneurs. हर तरफ से एक push है, people are encouraging them, but is it tough? I know being an entrepreneur in itself is tough, but your gender, does it make it difficult?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think again, I live in Bombay. Bombay is literally one of the safest cities. So in fact, when I was moving back from Boston, my husband and I, Sandeep and I, we flipped a coin. We said between Bombay and Bangalore. And Bangalore because, I mean, obviously it's the tech hub. Bombay because it is the safest city. And it came to be Bombay, and we moved to Bombay. And I was working, and there are many times, even now when I have to work till crazy hours, I can, earlier though, now have a car.
I know.
But earlier...
I'm from Delhi and I fully know what you mean,
I mean, for me to take a taxi at night, at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., whatever, koi problem nahi hui. Touch wood, right? Touch wood. But I can imagine like safety for working women is such a big issue. It is such a basic issue, right? Our public transport, like when we were teenagers, right? We'd go for tuition classes. And, even in Calcutta, I mean, people would be trying to touch or grope. It is a harrowing experience, and it's normalized after a bit because we just become so obtuse to the fact that this is happening to us because it happens to everybody.
It's such a flimsy term we've coined, eve teasing. It sounds so fun, whereas any woman can tell you it's traumatic.
It is traumatic, right? But that is the reality of India that we are still with. That needs to change. That really needs to change. I mean, forget everything else. This is the most basic paradigm. Safety, that needs to change.
It's so nice that you said this. At individually, hamare apne level pe, when we realize that we've reached somewhere, and we have so many allies. Like you said, you see detractors, those who are trying to make life difficult for you, but you also understand who are the ones who are really there, supporting you, your family, friends, or even otherwise people.
My teammates.
Your team. Breaking the cycle. Because kai baar kya hota hai, what we go through, we're like, deal with it because we all need to go through that. In your own way, how have you tried to make it a little easier for women who are now coming and probably working with you? Have you thought about that?
Yeah, many times. I think about that all the time, actually. In the Glamm group, we have, we're very uniquely positioned, actually. We have 65% of our team members being women. And of course, part of it is because of the segment we serve, which is, beauty, personal care as a segment. But part of it is also because we've really been extremely proactive about who we bring onto the table and how we bring them onto the table. So two things I'll call out. One is that our people's team, as we call it, the HR team in other in other parlance, the people's team actually makes it a point to ensure that we are really looking for a very, very equal split in applicants when we are hiring for roles.
So there's diversity,
100%,
which is very
right.
important.
That is super critical. And then once they come in, it is, of course, about all the policies and the rules that we have in place to ensure that women feel not just safe and protect and celebrated, but like also they thrive in the process. A lot of that actually also comes from doing a lot of workshopping with teams, because why do people leave, right? They leave because of either teams or managers. They don't leave because of company kya hai. Company is a function of teams and managers, right? And of course the mission you serve, but assuming the mission is already met. And when they come in, the teams have to basically understand the nuances of what it is to be a working mother or to be a woman who has to travel far to get to a household, right? How do you ensure that she's got the right facilities to reach home safely, if she's at all concerned about that being an aspect. So I think those are the processes, policies, and I think even just the workshopping that we continue to do with all our teams and our pods to ensure that women not just like stay in the system, but they actually accelerate in the system. I think the third thing I do want to call out is that we're also very fortunate because at the group, in our CXO level, we are disproportionately represented by women. I'm a co-founder. Right, Priyanka is one of my co-founders. We have Sukleen, who's the CEO of brands. Right, we have Disha, who heads our new product development. These are all critical roles, and therefore, when women who are coming up the ranks see other women, they're like, okay, we can be that, or we can be like them, or this is fine because it comes from the top. So I think ho jata hai, right, in these kind of companies, because then we are very proactive about ensuring this exists.
Okay, the next question that I'm going to ask you, I think you're in a perfect position to answer that. Startup ecosystem, women entrepreneurs, दो practical advice जो आप उन्हें देना चाहते हो to help them grow, build their brand better.
One is absolutely focus on building out your networks. And when I say not network, I don't mean networking, meetups, etc. I mean build for allies and sponsors who talk about you even when you're not in the room. This is extremely critical. You're right in terms of saying women are never relaxed and you're always busy, but you need to take out that time to develop your relationships in your broader industry and outside as well. Because eventually, that's how you succeed in the long haul in life, right? People have to know the good work you're doing. You have to support them when they need help. That is super critical, right? The second thing is to put yourself out there more and more. And it's like there's no excuse for that at all right now. You have LinkedIn, you have Instagram, you have Twitter. Choose your platform or poison of choice and go for it. Because if no one knows what you're doing, how you're doing it differently, or how you're doing it better, and what your successes are, and even your failures, right? Then who's going to root for you? You can't live in a bubble anymore. So promote yourself until you find people who are promoting you.
So very important to project that.
Very
and those
important.
Tough cold calls to make, to ask for appointments, to meet.
Yeah, I mean 100%. I mean that is part of entrepreneurship, right? I mean it's a complete mind switch ki koi sharam hi nahi hota uske baad. Like you're just putting yourself out there. You're trying to figure out how to like grow your business out, right? And that's okay. That's part of the job.
Naiyya, we've discussed a lot about disadvantage, the problems that women face. अब दो ऐसी चीजें जो आपको लगता है कि ये हमारा advantage है. I mean, we can flex, we can do it better because we are women. Or a natural advantage that comes with this.
I think we can predict some trends better. And that maybe comes from a pattern of constantly watching out for what is to come. I don't know, maybe we're just conditioned that way growing up. Ki next kya aayega, be ready for it. Even something as simple as when you're taking public transport, right? You're predicting ki abhi ye scenario ho sakta hai, and you're kind of playing in advance to either prevent or accelerate the scenario. So I think wo jo trend spotting, right, is a conditioning that we do as women,
playing
quite
out different scenarios in
different
the head,
scenarios.
So
and that can apply very well in business, by the way. Because business is about building in a very ambiguous circumstance. So this is actually a very critical skill that I think we women are conditioned to have and are forced to have from a very early age. I think the second piece is that we're very in tune with, for the most part, very in tune with popular culture. Because see, we don't live in bubbles. Work is not our only life, right? We're actually at any point in time interacting with so many different kinds of people, right? From the Mali to your Dudwala.
So you know how to communicate.
Yeah, you know how to communicate. You write like onto like your staff at home, to your teams, of course, at work, to investors, whatever, right? You're very connected. You're very plugged in to the way the world is moving forward. right? You're not living in a bubble keeper's office, you know,
Yeah,
like it's not
yeah.
like this single-minded thing, right? Your mother-in-law is also having a
Yeah,
conversation
yeah,
with your,
yeah.
you know, your families, right?
Yeah,
Your friends.
yeah.
So I think we're very in tune with popular culture and also the trends in which the world is moving forward.
Yeah, yeah. That's a lovely answer. That's brilliant. Thank you. Finally, a question I ask all my guests because आप सब बहुत inspiring हैं. To the young girl who's watching this, listening to this, a piece of advice that comes from your experience, something that you'll tell them.
Don't hold yourself back and don't live a life of regret. मैं यही बोलूँगी. And by the way, this young girl, the minute you said, I thought about myself. It's like when I was young, what would I have done differently?
Yeah.
I think every time I've held myself back, saying, मगर मैं डर गई, let's say, right? मुझे बहुत, I've lived with regret then. So don't do that. Put yourself out there. The world is magical.
Lovely. It was an absolute pleasure, Naiyya, speaking to you. Itne dil se, itne honest answers. You've tackled every question of mine and been so forthright. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Stutee, and more power to you and your team for bringing the voices of women across at such scale. Kudos.
Thank you.
Fever FM, happening